Hi, this is Carl Palchuk with another SOP video for managed service providers. And today we're going to talk about mailing lists. And actually this is a two-part video. So next week I'm going to talk about how you grow your lists. But today let's talk about what kind of lists do you have and what kind of lists do you need. The first list that you need to have is your client list. And as simple as that sounds, a lot of people haven't figured it out. I don't care if you have 5 clients, 25 clients, or 100 clients, or 1,000 clients, you need to have them in a mailing list. So there's two kinds of things. We're talking about both postal mailing list and email list. You have to keep those things up to date, which means you have to have a tool. So I want you to have a PSA, a professional services automation tool. That's the primary place I want you to keep these lists, but you might also keep them in Outlook. That's not my favorite, or an Excel spreadsheet. Any place where you can keep this. There's lots and lots of tools online. There's 1,012 different CRM systems that you can subscribe to. Figure out a place that you can commit to, and please don't worry that it has to be free. Free is very often the most expensive option. So find a good tool for managing your list. For me, I want it in the PSA, but you should just figure out what works for you. The client list is super important. First of all, it allows you to communicate with your clients. Now, who's on the client list? Well, you have your primary contact, always, but then you want to get as many of the employees as possible. So ask your clients, may I please add each of your employees to our mailing list, because I want to keep them informed on how to avoid ransomware, how to avoid viruses, some tips on shortcuts that they can use in Outlook, and all kinds of other stuff. So whatever you're going to put into your list. Obviously, next time we're going to talk about using your list and actually growing it. Why do we want all of those employees on your mailing list? Well, here's the deal. The world keeps turning, it keeps changing, it keeps spinning. And those people will not always work for that employer. So when they move somewhere else, you want to be top of mind when somebody says, oh man, we need somebody to help us figure out our computers. Oh, I know this guy that we used to work with at my last company, right? So keep those people on your mailing list, and eventually they will ask you if they can, put their personal email on there and not just their work email. And so you can kind of grow it that way. So the client list is a very, very fundamental list that you must maintain. Second, hot prospects. So who are the people that you've talked to at least casually about actually engaging you in business? Who are all of the people you've ever given a quote to? Who are all the people that ever gave you their card at a networking group? These are people that you've met face to face and you've had some business discussion with. They actually know who you are. They can pick you out of a lineup, right? Those are your hot prospects. Now, there may also be people that were total strangers and engaged you in some discussion. Maybe you've done a network audit for them, whatever. The hot prospects doesn't have to necessarily be a separate list, but depending on how your contacts are organized, you need to have a tag that they are in fact hot prospects. If you use a system such as Constant Contact, you can tag all of your contacts in there, and then you can do a search specifically for hot prospects and send them a mailing so that you know that it's very, very targeted. Hot prospects are important because obviously you want to make sure that they are informed about what you've got going on. You can invite them to events. You can keep them informed about sales you might be having or a new promotion for a new managed service offering. Next, we have other prospects. So what does that mean? Other prospects. This is a list of people that have ever attended any event that you've done. This is a list of people that, for whatever reason, you've had some contact and they're kind of not in your inner circle, they're kind of in the periphery, right? They're out there, they kind of sort of know who you are. Even if they've just been on your mailing list for years and years and years, I can't tell you how many times I've gone into a sales call and people say, oh, KP Enterprises, I've heard of you guys. I'm not even sure where, but I've heard of you guys. Well, It's because they've been on my prospect list forever and ever and ever, and finally they answered the call and brought me into their office. So the prospect list is going to be much bigger. So you might have whatever your client list, and then your hot prospects, those might be very small lists. Your other prospects is going to be a much bigger list. Finally, you have strangers. What the heck does that mean? Well, strangers are all the people where you basically bought a list. So you can go to InfoUSA or many other places and you can buy lists. For example, you might one year have a campaign where you're going to do a set of letters promoting to lawyers. So you're going to buy a list of lawyers within 50 miles of your office and send them information. Well, you can keep those people on your list for up to 1 year if you bought that list or rented that list from a service. If those people engage you in any way, you can then keep them on your prospect list essentially forever. In terms of postal mailings, you can keep a list of postal mailings forever. In the United States, there's no limit on sending things through the U.S. mail to anybody. Email lists, you have to be much more careful and you have to make sure that you're compliant with the canned spam laws. What we always do is we do a targeted campaign and then we add people to our big list. So some of them are truly strangers. They showed up on a list that we rented. And then we make sure we use those tags again so we know that these are attorneys and this is the campaign we sent to accountants and this is the campaign for nonprofits, right? Whatever the focus groups that you want to go after, you use those for a focused mailing, but you keep that information. Never, ever, ever throw away contact information. That is absolutely key. In the 21st century, if you ask anyone who's a guru about marketing, they're going to tell you the single greatest asset that you have is your list. And that might not be just one list, it might be broken into several different lists, but basically your contact list is where you're going to get future clients. So if you've not ever paid any attention to it, now is the time. Start building that list. I've talked to so many people who literally say, I started a newsletter and I've got 13 contacts. Good, right? So now you're building your reputation as putting out a newsletter and you're asking those people to invite their friends and pass it on to strangers and so forth. And so that list can grow and grow and grow all by itself. I started my first list by buying 100 names and growing from there. Right now, I have about 70,000 contacts total in my various lists. So obviously, when I send out an email, I can get a pretty decent response from just about anything because the list is so big. Your list may never grow that big, but you have to start somewhere. And even if your list only ever gets to be 500 or 1,000 names, if you consistently market to it, it will bring you value because those people actually know who you are and they feel more comfortable with you every time you make that contact. So get started building and organizing your list today. For Small Biz Thoughts, this is Carl Palchuk wishing you the best of luck in your managed service business.